It's Game 2 of the 2017 World Series in Los Angeles. Starting at second base is 38-year-old Chase Utley. He's not quite the athlete he used to be, as evident by his inability to get to this ground ball. When he lines out for his first at-bat, the announcers acknowledge what remains of a former superstar.
Still has that stroke, maybe not as quick as it once was.
Utley didn't start last night in Game 1, and he won't start again for the rest of the series. His role limited to mostly pinch hitting. This isn't anything like the last time he played in the World Series.
2 on, nobody out for Philadelphia. And a fly ball into right. Back at the wall. Utley goes deep.
It was nearly a decade ago when Chase Utley was one of the stars of a Philly team looking to win their second consecutive World Series. The Phillies ultimately would lose, but it was hard to find any fault in Utley, who in 2009 became the second player in history to hit 5 home runs in a World Series. Everyone is certain Utley will not be setting hitting records in the 2017 World Series. Right now, it's uncertain if he'll end the playoffs with any hits at all. After flying out in his second at-bat, Utley is now 0 for 11 in the postseason. It's easy to forget Utley was even on this team. Things are so much different than when he came into the league. He's not the same player he used to be, he's not on the same team he used to be, and in a lot of ways he's playing a game that isn't the same as it used to be. And maybe he's partly to blame.
Here's Chase Utley with a chance to do some damage here. Bases loaded, 2 outs. Long drive, could it be? It is out of here! Grand slam!
Utley made his debut in 2003 and got his first big league hit in grand fashion in the 3rd inning. His teammates and manager would razz Utley for how quickly he rounded the bases, assuming the excitement of his first big league hit had quickened his pace. They would soon learn that this is just how he plays. Throughout his career, it was not uncommon for Utley to finish his home run trots closing in on his teammates. This was just the only mode he knew how to be in, and Phillies fans would quickly become attached to him for it. When Utley would sign his first big major league contract, some speculated if it might cause him to ease up a bit now that he'd earned his payday. Utley could not even imagine a world in which he played differently. Utley was the poster boy for hard-nosed hustle baseball and did it all without saying much, often citing something his dad instilled in him growing up. You don't need to tell people how good you are. If that's the case, people will tell you. Utley lived by these words most of the time. After hitting .239 throughout the rest of his rookie season in 2003, Utley was told he did not make the big league team out of spring training the following season. When Philly manager Charlie Manuel broke the news to him, Utley politely told him he thought he made the wrong decision.
3 balls and a strike to Utley. Long drive! This game is over! The Phils have won it out of here! Chase Utley! A 2-out! Well hit! Could it be? It is out of here! 2-run home run! A walk-off homer! Chase Utley!
In the 5-year stretch between 2005 and 2009, here's what the average Chase Utley season looked like. A .301 average with a .922 OPS, 30 home runs, and 100 RBIs. According to wins above replacement, Utley was the second most valuable player in baseball over this stretch, behind just Albert Pujols. Now, these are the best 5 seasons in Utley's career, so let's pull back a bit. From his first full season in 2004 to his age 34 season in 2013, the most valuable player in baseball was again Albert Pujols. Again in second is Chase Utley. What's so interesting, and maybe what's even added to the fandom for Utley, was that he was not a remarkable athlete really in any regard. By MLB player standards, he was average size, he wasn't overly strong or fast, he just didn't really seem to have any weaknesses. Fangraphs tries to quantify value by assigning a runs added value for hitting, base running, and fielding, where 0 is average. Since 2000, there have been 797 players with at least 2,000 plate appearances. Here's how many have added at least 100 batting runs, 50 fielding runs, and 50 base running runs. Utley stands alone. Most players with comparable value in one area had a clear flaw. Most of the players that hit better than Utley were either below average on the base pass or hurting their team on defense, or both. Most comparable defenders and base runners hurt their teams offensively, and even the players that do 2 of these things at an elite level, they all falter in the other. The closest player to joining the 150-50 club is Mookie Betts, but his base running has been in decline now that he's in his 30s. Okay, what about young players? Since 2020, the only player with 50 batting runs, 25 fielding runs, and 25 base running runs is Bobby Witt Jr. Baseball stats really are remarkable. Father of sabermetrics Bill James put it best when he said that baseball statistics have acquired the power of language and are not just numbers. Using a bunch of numbers, I'm able to paint a picture of a player that, to those who understand that language, is remarkably clear. When you look at all this, it puts statements like these into perspective. Except this was said by a Dodgers bench coach. By the time Utley was a Dodger, there was no remarkable numbers to speak of. As a Dodger, he's been below average as a hitter and fielder, and when he flies out to left in his last at-bat of Game 2, he's now 0 for 12 in the postseason. Yet somehow he inspired this comment, and will have Dodger players pestering GM Andrew Friedman to bring him back for 2018. Even with the power of language, numbers can't explain this. To understand this, we have to dive into the land of intangibles. Intangibles are the things in sports that you can't see by looking at the stat sheet. Sometimes fans or coaches who are strictly anti-analytics will use intangibles to just mean the eye test. Basically, your numbers say player bad, my eyes say player good. See people who defend Derek Jeter's defense. What I'm referring to here is less eye test and more plays that lack context when just looking at the box score. For example, when you see ground out second to first, picture that play in your mind. Whatever you're picturing, I bet it wasn't this.
Fastball punched on the ground. Utley picks it, still plenty of time. Wow! Utley sprawled in.
For a more relevant example, during the 2008 World Series in Game 5, the Rays have the go-ahead run on second with 2 outs in the 7th. Akinori Iwamura hits a ground ball to Utley's right. This is going to be a tough play, with Iwamura having decent speed and Utley's momentum going away from first base. Utley instead fakes the throw to first and pretty easily is able to throw out Jason Bartlett trying to score. I think Utley probably would have gotten him at first, but either in real time or thinking ahead prior to the ball being hit, assessed that it made less sense to try to make an acrobatic throw against his body under a time crunch than it would to just get the runner to commit to going home before making a pretty effortless one-bounce throw to nab the runner by 15 feet. Maybe your flavor of second baseman is one that is athletic enough that they can make this play at first without even thinking about it, but that's not Chase Utley. From even before Utley was drafted, scouts were doubting his ability to be a big league infielder, lacking the range for second and the arm for third. No scout was even willing to entertain the idea of him being a shortstop, despite that being where he played at UCLA. To bridge the gap, Utley had to mask his lack of tools by always making the heads-up play. Even more intangible than what can only be seen by watching the games is what happens before the broadcast even starts. Utley spends hours before the game watching video. What he lacks in natural athleticism, Utley plans on bridging that gap with brute force preparation. Utley wanted to know everything there was to know about a pitcher before he faced him. When on a Phillies podcast after his career was over, Utley was asked about the most memorable time in his career that he felt his preparation paid off. At first, he kinda shrugged and said there were too many to count, but then he started talking about an at-bat in 2012 against Marlins ace Josh Johnson. During his preparation for the game, he realized Johnson's opponents were hitting .096 when the count was 0-2 or 1-2. He wanted to know why, so he studied as many 1-2 and 0-2 pitches from Johnson he could find, looking for any patterns. He found that when Johnson was ahead in the count, he almost never threw a pitch in the strike zone, and if you could get yourself to 2-2 or 3-2, your chances of getting a hit nearly triple. Sure enough, in the 7th inning of a tie game, Johnson quickly gets ahead 0-2, throws the next 3 pitches out of the zone, and gives up a single on the 3-2 pitch. Preparation paid off. Here's the thing about this at-bat. Utley isn't even the one batting. It's Phillies backup infielder Pete Orr who's pinch hitting. When Orr was told he was going to bat, he, like countless other hitters had before and will do after, asked Utley to give him the scoop on Johnson. Orr used Utley's advice to lay off the 2-strike pitches and wound up being the run that won the game. This is Utley's most memorable time preparation paid off. A single that led to a game-winning run in a random September game in 2012 that Utley didn't even hit. It wasn't even a big game. The Phillies at that time were barely above 500 and would end up missing the playoffs by 7 games. But Utley felt that day he'd given his team a better chance to win the game with his preparation. It's this obsession with finding any edge to help the team win that led the Dodgers GM Andrew Friedman into constantly nagging the Phillies about acquiring the clearly declining Utley. Friedman was trying to get the Dodgers back to playoff success and had heard of the influence Utley had on the Phillies clubhouse during his peak. Utley's teammates had said what inspired them to play so hard was not to disappoint Chase. Friedman thought Utley could have a similar impact with the Dodgers, and his declining on-field production just made him cheaper. With a full no-trade clause, it was up to Utley whether or not he'd let the Phillies move him. He found a certain nobility about staying with the same team your entire career. Luckily for Friedman, there was one thing that Utley coveted even more: a second championship. Phillies management let Friedman pitch directly to Utley his plan to end the Dodgers' near 3-decade drought without a championship. With LA also being his hometown team, Utley agreed to waive his no-trade clause and was sent to the Dodgers. With the Dodgers, he'd still intensely study pitchers and share what he learned with his teammates, even in games that he himself wasn't playing. One player in particular that almost forced himself under Utley's wing was Corey Seager. When Utley arrived in LA, Seager was a rookie trying to get adjusted to big league baseball and would study his new locker mate. He'd replicate how Utley prepared for games, he'd pick his brain any chance he could. When it looked like Utley may be let go by the Dodgers prior to 2018, Seager, among other players, lobbied to the front office that Utley should be brought back regardless of what he could do on the field, which in the 2017 postseason isn't much. Utley would enter Game 3 as a pinch hitter and go 0 for 2, making him 0 for 13 in the playoffs. Utley wouldn't play at all in Games 4 or 5, getting his next plate appearance in Game 6, where he finally reached base for the first time in the World Series. It was fitting that it was via hit by pitch. At this point, only 7 hitters in baseball history had been hit more than Utley. During his career, no player was hit within 70 times as many as Utley. A fact that some may see as evidence to Utley being unlucky, Chase actually believes it was the opposite, saying he was fortunate to get hit so often.
Fortunate? Why would you be fortunate for that?
Then you get on base for your teammates, and
True.
Get on base for Ryan Howard, who hit behind me in Philadelphia.
For Utley, being essentially gifted a trip to first base meant his team had a better chance to win, which was a net positive. The reason why he was hit so much is hard to pinpoint. It surely is in part to his reluctance to get himself out of harm's way when the trade-off is a free base. There have been instances even that Utley pretended to be hit by a pitch to get on first. Or maybe the high hit by pitch total has more to do with teams retaliating for his style of play. For as intimidating as Utley is when he's in the box, when he's on base, he's in a way even more dangerous. This is the style of baseball Chase Utley grew up watching and subsequently trying to imitate. While rampant in the late 20th century, this style of play was mostly gone from the game by the mid-2010s. Utley wasn't the only one still running the bases this way, but he was probably the most notorious. Players knew to brace for impact when Utley was on base, or you may just risk needing to be helped off the field. Of the over 200 times Utley was hit in his career, the most memorable might be the time when he wasn't.
I mean, you can't do that. You're not in that situation, man. You can't.
You gotta give us a shot.
Listen,
why
you know the situation, Terry.
Why don't we get a shot, Tommy? Because MLB did nothing to that guy. Nothing.
Okay.
This iconic argument was in response to a takeout slide from Utley in the 2015 playoffs that actually broke Mets shortstop Ruben Tejada's leg. Mets manager Terry Collins' statement is in response to Utley winning his appeal of the initial 2-game suspension that Major League Baseball gave him. It's rather tragic that for a player as great as he was, that this is probably the play most people remember Chase Utley for. To say that this play was controversial would be a massive understatement, and the debate had started immediately on the national broadcast as it happened. The two former major leaguers on the TBS broadcast are Ron Darling and Cal Ripken. What would end up being months of discourse where basically every current and former player had something to say about the play, Darling and Ripken managed live on air with no preparation to pretty effectively present both sides of the argument.
Going to turn that way to make a throw. Utley got off in a great secondary lead, and he gets right there to break up the double play.
Didn't even start sliding till he was even with the bag. This is a play you used to see that happen a lot 30 years ago. Very rarely see it happen now. What a collision.
Utley took a shot to the face, too. That was going to be a tough double play to turn anyway. But Utley made sure they need that run. They need that tying run.
You like that slide, Cal? You don't think that's dirty?
I think it's a hard-nosed play. You're expecting them to come towards you face front. Once he turns around to try to make the acrobatic throw the other way, then it puts him in a situation that looks like a real violent collision. That's coming in my opinion, just to break up the double play. That was normal.
They wouldn't even allow that in the NFL. If a receiver is vulnerable, they wouldn't let a defensive back hit him like that. And that's what Utley did right there.
I think it looked a lot worse than it was by Tejada trying to turn and throw from that angle. He slid a little bit late, but he's around the bag. So yeah, I say that's a hard, clean play.
And I think it's all right for us to disagree. I think that the slide by Utley was late.
No question it was late.
Yeah, I think it looked as bad as it was.
What one side saw as a clean, hard-nosed play, others saw as a dirty attempt to hurt another player that had no place in modern baseball. While Utley continually stated he had never tried to intentionally hurt another player, I found this quote from him to be the most genuine.
All I know is that I was trying to break up the double play for us to win a game. We ended up winning the game. I was able to break up the double play.
Utley saw the entire ordeal as just the price of doing business. This actually wasn't even the first run-in Utley had with Tejada at second base. In Tejada's rookie year, Utley had, in my opinion, an even more egregious slide. Tejada walked away mostly okay from this one, but the Mets still felt the need to retaliate. This time they went for the eye for an eye approach, with Carlos Beltran sliding hard into second base, and on this occasion as well, Utley came away unscathed. While Utley was not explicitly punished, these types of slides into second base would be banned outright for the following offseason, representing victory for those who saw the play as dirty. Much like the Buster Posey incident was considered the spotlight event that led to home plate collisions being banned, Utley's slide into Tejada was seen as the tipping point to outlaw takeout slides entirely, some going even as far as to call it the Utley rule. Of course, it had to be a Mets player that Utley collided with. The love Utley had received from Phillies fans for his career was mirrored equally by the hatred Mets fans have for him. After all, there aren't many players who have a named location in a ballpark of a rival team. During a 2009 series where Utley had taken Mets pitching deep 3 times to essentially the same spot, Mets broadcaster Gary Cohen dubbed the area near the right field foul pole Utley's Corner. There was no team that allowed more hits or home runs to Utley in his entire career than the Mets, who he had a 900 OPS against. Mets fans already didn't like Utley far before the slide. To make matters even worse, after Syndergaard's failed attempt at revenge, Utley would hit 2 home runs that night, including a grand slam that led to a Dodger blowout win. Utley always seemed to have the answer when it came to the Mets. After his career was over, Utley went on a New York talk show where he allowed listeners to call in. The first few calls were mostly, "I respected you as a baseball fan, but I hated you as a Mets fan." Then there was Callie, the final caller, who had put it a tad more blunt.
But when you took out my shortstop in the playoffs, that wasn't about talent, that was just being dirty. And I don't care how long you tell me that was just you being old school, that was you being dirty, because that's what you do.
See you, sweetheart.
While this is obviously the outrage of an emotional fan, she was far from alone in her assessment of Utley. In 2011, years before the Tejada slide, Sports Illustrated did a poll among Major League Baseball players during spring training. The question stemmed from most overrated player, to best and worst umpire, to manager you'd most like to play for. One of the questions was meanest player in baseball. Who do you think won that? It was actually AJ Pierzynski, but Chase Utley was the second most popular answer. If this poll was given after the Ruben Tejada incident, Utley would have won by a landslide. Another of the poll questions was most entertaining opponent to chat with, which Utley no doubt would have finished last. Perhaps not forming personal bonds with his opponents made them easier to bulldoze. What has come up a lot in the discussion about Chase Utley is the concept of playing the game the right way. In Utley's view, sliding hard into second or taking out the catcher is playing the game the right way. However, Utley prided himself on never staring too long at his home runs. If you're a little confused as to why Utley considers this playing the game the right way and this considered not respecting the game, here's my understanding of the mentality. Utley is justified in trying to take out the middle infielder because if he's successful, he may save his team an out, thus giving them a tangible advantage. Admiring a home run, however, has no strategic value and only serves as to bruise the ego of your opponent. As long as the intent is to win the game, any injury that may come of it is just the unfortunate byproduct of baseball. Unless, of course, you're already winning, then trying to win is completely over the line. When playing for the Dodgers, Utley's young teammate Yasiel Puig attempted to steal a base in a game the Dodgers were handily winning. To try to teach Puig a lesson in how his disrespectful actions have consequences, he tried to talk the opposing catcher into hitting him with a pitch intentionally, which is baseball's great enforcer of the unwritten rulebook. Utley accepted that although he believed his style of play was always for the right reasons, pitchers always had the option of showing him he was in the wrong by hurling a fastball at him. In his entire career, Utley never charged the mound. He did, however, start a bench-clearing confrontation after he did something that even the most hardcore new school baseball fan would agree is over the line. After being hit high on the back by a Jonathan Sanchez fastball, Utley lightly tossed the ball back to the mound. Sanchez was understandably incensed by this, and the benches cleared. The closest time Utley got to actually charging the mound was coincidentally also against Jonathan Sanchez. After being nearly decapitated, Utley takes a few steps toward the mound before remembering that it's within Sanchez's right to police the game. Utley did throw in a little mental warfare by stepping out at the last second before the next pitch, before doing what he came to do at the plate in the first place and hit a home run, being sure to put his head down and round the bases as to not show up the pitcher. I get I'm laying it on thick, but it really is a strange sentiment by former players that today's baseball has gone soft when benches used to clear over any perceived microaggression. Former players have a lot of criticism for the way baseball is played today, and there are some that are legitimate, but the idea that this style of play is good for the game is among the most ridiculous. I don't blame Chase Utley for this slide. I believe him when he said he wasn't trying to hurt anyone. I believe him when he said he'd do anything to help his team win. This should have been taken out of baseball far before Utley became the poster child for the long overdue rule change. While this brand of baseball made Utley the player he was, it also became the biggest thing that held him back. Utley has been on the Hall of Fame ballot for 3 years now, with his support growing each year. I think he will get in eventually, with people appreciating his peak as being one of the greatest ever by a second baseman. What has kept Utley out so far has been his severe lack of the counting milestones, which are seen by some as prerequisites for Cooperstown. Utley never got to 2,000 hits or 300 home runs. The majority of Utley's seasons post-turning 30 were hampered by injuries, most of which were seen to be a direct result of his style of play. Just as he was asked about easing off the gas when he received his first extension, coaches urged Utley to tone down his style of play for the sake of his health, to which he believes he just isn't capable. Early in his career, Utley would talk his manager out of giving him days off. He'd go full speed to first on plays he had almost no chance of being safe, and dive for balls he had almost no chance of catching. Almost being the word that Utley can't look past. Even if it would benefit him 95% of the time, the fear of that 5% chance keeps him from slowing down. Maybe it wouldn't have mattered. Baseball players get hurt all the time, especially after they turn 30. But just for comparison, let's look at a notorious non-hustler in Manny Machado. Since his first full season in 2013, Machado has played in at least 85% of his team's games in 12 out of 13 seasons, a feat Utley only accomplished 6 times his entire career. In his age 32 season, Machado played 159 games, and as of recording this, has played in almost every game in 2026 at the age of 33. Machado has infamously spoken out about not being Johnny Hustle, and even his manager in 2024 attributed Machado knowing when to regulate his effort as a big part of him staying healthy. If Utley would have known when to slow down, maybe he would have been able to stay on the field long enough to hit these Hall of Fame benchmarks. But if he would have done that, he wouldn't have been Chase Utley. In his second to last at bat in the 2017 playoffs, Utley would hit a dribbler back to the pitcher. Despite being banged up in 37, Utley would hustle down the line for that 5% chance he might be safe. Utley would pinch hit in the 9th inning of Game 7 and would strike out. The Dodgers would lose the World Series and Utley would finish the postseason 0 for 15. Not long after the season ended, the Dodgers would sign infielder Logan Forsythe, representing to many the end of Chase Utley's time as a Dodger and possibly the end to his time as a Major League Baseball player. Instead, both coaches and players, Corey Seager among them, would come together to lobby on Utley's behalf, and the Dodgers would re-sign the soon-to-be 38-year-old who just went hitless in the playoffs. Friedman knew why. It's an impact that numbers can't describe, but that everyone in that Dodger clubhouse can. An impact so specific that there was no one else the Dodgers could have signed to replace it. Utley would retire a year later, and with him a prototype went extinct from Major League Baseball. Baseball is certainly losing something with the departure of players like Chase Utley. The Dodgers are seen today as one of the most analytically savvy organizations in baseball, and yet, at least in 2018, they saw the value in the intangibles that Utley had brought to the team. With each passing year, baseball is seeking to measure and quantify as much of the game as it can. With this hyper-optimization, the demand for veteran players whose wisdom and experience are his best traits is almost non-existent. The Dodgers went to the World Series again in 2018. After going down 3-1 to the Boston Red Sox, Game 5 may be Chase Utley's last day in Major League Baseball. He's taking ground balls before the game, despite not even being on the playoff roster, and yet his teammates are still speaking of him like he's invaluable. Maybe they're onto something.